Welcome back. This is Signature Mornings. It's a big Signature special because it's going to be all about Valentine's Day, even though with what I'm putting on, it doesn't look like it, but it's fine. We have with us Reverend Father George Adimike. He's a clergy. He's joining us on Zoom this morning. He will be talking on the significance of Valentine's celebration and people's perception. Good to have you, Reverend. Good morning. Happy Valentine's. Reverend Father George Adimike, can you hear me? Reverend George, if you can, so please just say hello to me, or better still, look at the mute button. If you can unmute your microphone.
Okay, hello.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Reverend
Hello.
Father George, I can hear you now. How do you do? Good morning.
I'm good. And you?
I'm fantastic. Happy St. Valentine's Day.
I wish you the same.
All right, so there's a whole lot that have been said about Valentine's, even with people going about celebrating it, not necessarily knowing what the meaning or the history that surrounds it. For you, can you give us an overview of what Valentine's is, what it should stand for, and going forward, what you think that people should be doing when it's a day like this?
So, St. Valentine's Day is a day of love. Every day is a day of love. But as human beings, we give significance, we give symbolism to particular things and days and the persons. So, St. Valentine's Day, out of convention, has become a day set aside when people celebrate love, when people remember love, either because of what St. Valentine did or things that were associated with him. So it becomes for human beings, for people, Christians mainly, a day to celebrate the gift of love, that we are made to love. We are made in love, to be agents of love, to be embodiment of love. So today is a day set aside in a special way to celebrate the precious gift of love.
All right, you have a different perspective. I mean, if you speak to somebody who is not a clergy, I'm sure they will actually have a totally different kind of thinking or thoughts about Valentine's Day. What is the most significant significantly wrong perception of Valentine's you've ever heard or experienced in today's generation?
So when love is disconnected from meaning, from logic, then love becomes lost. Many young people see Valentine's celebration as a day when they explore their sexual proclivities. So they turn love into lust. So what is wrong is the lustful aspect of that this celebration. But lust will not stop people from celebrating love. Lust is misdirected love. It's a love that encountered accident. The love that lost its direction. Because the object of our love is supposed to be icon, is supposed to be a means through which humans experience God, who is ultimately love. But once the object of love becomes an idol,
Hello, Reverend. Okay,
so
we may have it.
sorry, yeah, okay. So once the object of love becomes end in itself, then love misses its mark, loses its meaning, and it becomes lost because the object of love becomes an idol for the self-satisfaction of the person. So it becomes therefore a lost and no more love. So Valentine's The wrong understanding of it is when people see it as a day to explore sexual proclivity and move out of the real love, because love is different from lust.
Right. I mean, you have explicitly put it out there, what young people these days think love is, but you also think that the failure of the parents, failure of religious institutions, and failure of even the traditional institutions have, made people of this class and of this status feel that way about love.
Yes. So young people depend on society for their formation, starting from the family, from the religious institutions, from traditional institutions. So when we do not teach them the right things, when we do not show by example, because sometimes we might say that, but our lives show something else. So when the life is not in congruence with what we are saying, so they take it that this does not mean much. But if what we teach them and what we show by example, the way we live, then the young people will pick the right values. And the right value is that every human being was created out of love for love. And love is not when you use the other person. You use things, not persons. So you don't use somebody for your sexual gratification. Rather, sexual intercourse or conjugal act supposed to be the highest form of expression of self-gift, mutual self-gift between two persons, and it is rightfully done in marriage, whether it's traditional marriage or Christian marriage or Muslim marriage. It is rightfully done within that context. So society owe a lot to the young people who are supposed to emulate what the older generation, what they do. So it may not be complete failure, because the young people of today also have other ways where they pick their influences. The Gen Zs and Gen As and Gen Ys, Generation Y, Generation Z, and Generation Alpha, uh, do not have issues with authority or authority figures, and they do not so much look up to persons with authority or institutions. So most times they don't even listen to what these authority figures say. But I think the power of example of older generation can help direct these young ones. All right.
All right. Um, Again, the issue of love comes to play like you explained it. I mean, you use the word use. People should not feel that they are used in a relationship. But again, many persons have also said that it is impossible for both parties to give 100% love in a relationship. Somebody has to be the one to give more love over the other. Do you believe in this? And to what extent can someone think that they are giving more, not feel that they are being used?
Okay, so since once it is human affairs, it is not mathematical. It is more of mysterious. So that you can measure the amount of yourself being given to the other. So whether one is giving 100%, the other person is giving 95%, it is not provided the aim is to give oneself to the other. No two person has the same capacity to give at the same measure. In relationships, one person must definitely be sacrificing more than the other person, because there is no how you can say that they must sacrifice 70%, 70% equally. So one person, but if it is love, it doesn't count how much the other person is giving. Because what I know and what matters to me is I am giving myself wholly and entirely to this person. So once it begins to calculate, once it begins to think whether I'm being cheated or not, then it means also the idea of trade, barter, commerce has come in. Because I am giving this in order for this person to give me this. So both of them might go for mutual egoist. And when so who have common interests in their egoism, and the common interest is their self-satisfaction. So each of them is using the other for the self-satisfaction. And when the common interest is no longer there, the relationship clashes. But if it is relationship rooted in God, flowing from God, you love the person in spite of the person. Especially, for example, in marriage circumstance, you love your husband, you love your wife, in spite of, because the love is coming from God. And it is in that context that eros meets agape. Eros is the love that begins from the self, from the human nature. And agape is the love that begins from the supernatural. And both of them coming together, it keeps purified. Intentions have to be purified in marriage, in relationships. It might begin with self-interest, but as it goes, it gets purified and purified. So it might be self-serving at the beginning, but as it grows, becomes self-sacrificing. So I'm not saying that 100% two persons might give themselves at the same rate. But the person who is giving more, provided the person wants to give himself or herself to the other person, you do not count so much about how much the other person is giving, unless it's just something merely human.
I mean, we cannot take away the human factor when it comes to love, even though we know love may be spiritual. But then again, we also know that if love is involved, I mean, it should be mutual. And I mean, you should also be able to count the costs of love. I mean, you're trying to say that nobody should count the costs of your love, when you are in a relationship with somebody, because it can never be quantified 100% for both parties. But let me also move on with this conversation. Another word that has also come in between relationships are the word compromise. Do you think that relationship these days should accept compromise in building a selfless relationship that lasts long? And to what extent, really, do you think that compromise should be taken? Because some persons can exploit compromises.
Okay, so compromise is one of the rubrics of relationships. Because if you are as you are, then you will not count the other. In relationship, the other counts. If the other counts, for me to bond with the other, I must sacrifice something of myself. And what I'm sacrificing is the compromise I'm making in order to create space for the other person. So if the relationship is real and genuine, both of them must be ready to make some sacrifices. And making that sacrifice is what you call compromise, is to create space for the other person. So if one refuses to create space for the other person, the relationship will hardly grow. It will hardly grow. What it grows by, the more you diminish your ego, the more you create space for the other person to thrive. Because these are two egos coming together. If there is no compromises, if they don't create a common place where both of them can meet, and the larger the place, the more they create space for both of them to thrive, the more compromises they are making. But once they come as they are and insist that they will be in a relationship as they are, then they will certainly crash, or one person will feel used or abused in the relationship. So it is for both of them. It's highly important, whether it
Right.
is in non-marriage relationship or marriage relationship. Is highly important. The two persons, for them to work together, they must agree. And in agreeing is that you leave something. The scripture says it this way. that the woman, the man will leave the father and mother to unite with the, what the scripture didn't say is that the woman has to also leave something. So both of them must leave something. They must leave something of themselves, in order to create space where both of them can thrive.
How do you know somebody's trying to exploit the compromise? Because again, like you said, you can't give 100%. So much so that compromise will not be 100%. We've seen these compromises play in different scenarios. For you, how do you detect that somebody is exploiting the compromise that you are bringing forth?
So once you love, what happens in that love? You cut it. If somebody is not being genuine, because we are beyond matter, we are beyond material. If somebody's relationship is not true to you, you will somehow you feel it. You will dictate it. Now you also know it by the person's availability, the person's generosity, his generosity of self, how much is the person wants to go with you? Is the person playing hide and seek? Is the person using sense so much? Being miserly in things you do together. So somehow, from that relationship, you will catch, you will perceive it. You perceive it from the attitude of the person. These are, you check the attitude. The spirit will first of all report to you. And once you have the premonition, then what you do is to watch the attitude of the person. Because if the person is playing hide and seek, somehow it will show in his or her attitude.
All right, Reverend, many thanks for your time. I mean, there's some interesting insights that you have actually put forth on the program this morning. We truly appreciate your insights. Thank you so much.